Welcome to my Self-Care Shit, the podcast, where we talk about what true self-care looks and feels like. I'm your host, Kathy Love, two-time TEDx speaker, author, and self-care coach. Each week, we'll have honest conversations on how to create the peace and stability we crave in our lives.
I get into my groove, but I am so excited to have Jessica Dean here today. She has become such a good friend over the last few years, even though we've known each other for over 20, I think. We are neighbors. We live in the same town, and we've been in an energy healing class together for the last couple of years, which is where we really connected and have learned so much from each other. And I am so excited to share some of what Jessica has taught me in the connection between nutrition and self-care.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I think anytime I have an opportunity to share what I've learned about intuitive eating and healing my relationship with food is always so exciting for me. I know I was kind of stuck in like this disordered way of eating, not really realizing that it was disordered. And the same with like exercise, not really realizing my relationship with exercise was kind of disordered until I read the intuitive eating book. Actually, it was until a dietitian I was working with told me to read the intuitive eating book. And when I did, it was like light bulbs going off all over the place. And I knew I needed to bring this information to other women ASAP. So that's kind of how I started with this.
So when you say you were working with a nutritionist, was that a coach for you?
No, it was just a coworker. Actually, when I was at Yale, we were working in the bariatrics department, which is kind of ironic, right?
Right.
Working in a weight loss place. And she came into my office one day and she's asked me, like, have you ever heard of intuitive eating or body kindness? And I was really confused by her question because I had never even thought about it. You know, I'm a dietitian and we were kind of trained to think about food as a method to lose weight, right? Something to be controlled. So to think about being intuitive with our eating wasn't something that we ever learned in school. It was always like calculate calories and meet your protein needs. And intuitive eating or even listening to your body, which it just wasn't something that we were taught or even, encouraged to think about. So when she brought it to my attention, of course, I was interested. And the thing about disordered eating is you usually don't know that you're in it, you know, and then once you know, you can't unknow. So when I read the book, I realized that my relationship with food was really funky and disordered. And so started doing more healing work on that and just kind of quit my job at the bariatrics department, no more weight loss, opened up my own private practice, really connected with other women and starting to realize that most people have a disordered relationship with food, and really dedicated my profession to helping other women heal.
Wow. So I think it could make all of us listening to you, myself included, feel better about what we don't know about nutrition and intuitive eating, considering you've had the education, you've done all of the training, and yet that still wasn't a big part of it or any part of it. So excuse me, I think sometimes when we learn something new, we tend to blame ourselves for not knowing sooner. We tend to think that we did something wrong. But in a lot of cases, it's just something that we never learned.
100%. And I grew up in a family that my mom was very much focused on weight and what we ate and, you know, appearances. And so that was kind of my blueprint. You know, that's just what I thought was normal was control the way I ate, control how I exercised, control everything. And I really didn't think that, I thought everybody thought like that. I really thought that was normal. And until I, you know, grew up and started doing more research and reading this book and realized like not everybody thinks about food every second of the day. You know, some people actually just use food as nourishment. And it's enjoyable and they're not shameful or critical or anything like that after they eat. But for me, that was not how I perceived food or eating. It was always like judgment, critical, counting every calorie, refreshing in my brain at the end of the day. Like, what did I eat today? Did I eat too much? How many calories did I eat? Yeah. And I just thought that was normal. And then, realizing it's not normal. I think the other piece of disordered eating too is realizing that food is more than just nourishment. Like it is also something, it's also self-care. I usually say it's the ultimate form of self-care. And if you don't see eating or nourishment as self-care, then you don't pay attention to it. It doesn't get the attention that it deserves, right? It's kind of like this off, like, oh, I'll eat or I'll not eat. Maybe I'll skip a meal and I don't know, maybe I'll eat carrot sticks. So we don't give it enough attention. Instead of really asking, like, what do I want to eat? Am I hungry for food? Have I had too much food? And really coming at it from like a self-care perspective. And I never thought of eating or nourishment as self-care until I started diving deeper into the intuitive eating, which is all about, listening to your body and really connecting, which, self-care is the same, right? You connect deeper to what you need. And so,
the words that you and I use in our coaching are so similar. First of all, how you described your relationship with food prior to learning about intuitive eating sounds very familiar to me. And so I can totally relate to that. I imagine, like you said, most people have some form or level of disordered eating. Our words are very similar, but going really down to that disconnection from ourself, which is what I boil codependency, healing from codependency down to, is a disconnection from ourself. So how does that create the disordered eating, that disconnection?
So for me, I think when we just lose sight of what we need, right, there's that huge disconnection. And so whether it's like we need sleep or we need some water or we need a hug or we need food, right, when we're not paying attention to the messages our body sends out to us, we're disconnected. And it's not typically something that we're taught. I know, like, I wasn't raised in a family that was like, what do you need? What are you feeling? So you don't know what you don't know until you start to do some of this work, or you're lucky enough to have a coworker who brings it to you, or a friend, right, who's a self-care coach. I feel like a lot of people don't know what it means to be connected to their body and live really disconnected. And it's truly a gift when you can connect back to yourself. I feel like our bodies just give us so much information. Again, like whether we're hungry, tired, sleepy, thirsty, we have to go to the bathroom. All these are internal messages that are always there. And if we haven't been able to tune in to listen, we miss them. And so whether it starts with like self-care work with you, or it starts with intuitive eating, anywhere that you start on the spectrum of listening to your body is just going to bring you closer to meeting your needs. And I always say to my patients, we start with intuitive eating, right? We start with listening to your body around sensing hunger and fullness cues, and it kind of like unravels from there. And it eventually leads you to intuitive living. Because once you know what your body needs, or what all these signals are that your body is sending out, or you can't ignore like the discomfort you feel over here, right? Then you have to start to pay attention and shift and do things that are more aligned with what the information is that you're getting from your body.
Right.
So it's very much like intuitive eating leads to intuitive living. And that's true in my experience also.
Yeah. And you said that you noticed that a lot of the learning or the not learning certain things came from the way you were raised, from our parents. And in our healing, we learn to understand that our parents only know what they know, the best that they can do. And so it's not in any way blaming. It's just understanding that that's where it came from. And in the healing from codependency, parents tend to, again, get upset with themselves for teaching their kids the things that they did before they learned a new way. But I always tell them that there's so much more learning that happens in the healing, and that our children, no matter what age, young or adults, they learn so much from us as we go through that process. Do you find that with this as well?
Yes, for sure. I like what you said. I don't blame my mom for being super interested in nutrition and being kind of hyper focused on healthy eating. She was doing what she felt was best. And that was fine. And she can do whatever feels right to her. And it's my responsibility to do what feels right to me and shift in ways that feel more aligned. In terms of me with my children, right? So I feel like I pivoted and was a little bit of a cycle breaker when it came to healing our relationships with food and not dieting. So with my kids, they saw me do this transformation from being this, like, I don't know, what do they call them? Like almond moms or whatever
Right.
it is, like really healthy eating, I didn't let my kids eat certain foods or had judgment around certain foods, up until the point that I started doing my relationship with food. And then I started to allow them to have more fun foods in the house or less judgment around what they ate or whatever it may be. And so they got to live my healing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell a story about my kids and chocolate milk. I probably have told you this too, maybe, but I would never let my kids have chocolate milk. So all like when they were little, it was always like white milk, no chocolate milk. That's bad. It's too much sugar. And so when I started doing this healing work, and this intuitive eating work, in the book, it says, introduce food slowly that you haven't allowed yourself to have. And for your kids, like allow them to have some of the foods that you've never allowed them to have. And so chocolate milk was kind of my first experiment of bringing that into the house. And I was really nervous because I knew that they would drink it in, seconds. It's not something they're used to having, and that they would just like guzzle it down and it would be gone, and that happened. I brought it into the house. They drank it really fast. My heart beat fast the whole time. Like, oh my gosh, all the sugar that they're drinking. There's like, I'm a horrible mom letting them have chocolate milk. But part of the process is continuing to introduce the same food over and over again until it becomes boring. And so I did that. I kept bringing, every time it would run out, I would bring more in, run out, I'd bring more in until, the point that chocolate milk would sit in our fridge untouched and they didn't care. Right. And so when I would bring the chocolate milk in, it would last a week or 2 weeks or whatever it may be, because they got used to it being there, that it was no longer this special thing. And so that's very important too in this healing our relationship with food, is introducing the foods that were so scary or off limits for us, and be able to be around them and have them and not feel like we need to overconsume them. The food no longer has power over you. You have taken your power back. So even in instances like that may sound so silly, it really is kind of this power shift, right? Like putting you back in the driver's seat of like, I can have chocolate milk around. I can have candy bars around. I can have whatever the food is around. I know I'm in control of my decisions and what I'm doing, rather than the food being in control, is what I hear from a lot of patients, is like, I can't have that food around. I'll eat it all. I'll eat the whole bag. I'll have all the chocolate chips. And in those instances, it's the food that's in control and not you. So when we can shift the power back to you, that feels very empowering, so then we just bring that to other areas of our life also, of like, I can handle this, I handled that, but the exposure is really important. The exercise is really important. And it's also very scary. Seeing my kids drink tons of chocolate milk for a few weeks or months was very scary for me as a mom, thinking like, they're never going to stop drinking chocolate milk and their teeth are going to rot out, or whatever silly thing I had in my mind. But to see how it came full circle, and they started listening to their bodies, like, oh, I don't want chocolate milk today. I'll have it tomorrow. It'll be there tomorrow. Or I don't want any. It's, it's not as good as I remember. They were able to listen to their bodies too. And now it's not like a big thing to have chocolate milk. Actually, they don't even ask for it anymore. And they're not kids, they're young adults now, but they don't, it's not even a thing, So they've been able to kind of heal. That's just one example, their relationship with food, or not even have a disordered relationship with food, because I was able to heal mine and allow them to kind of pick and choose foods that feel best in their body and not, feel like they're doing anything bad or wrong in doing so.
I love that. You've never shared that story with
Oh,
me.
really?
And it is such a great example, I think, that we can all relate to. And it's really that anything we consider forbidden,
Mhm.
the person we're not supposed to call
Yes.
is the one person we want to call. Yeah. So I completely get that. And I love it. Do you think that, well, it's interesting too, because you said it puts us back in the driver's seat.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, my last guest, KL Shaw, talked about how she puts people back in the driver's seat when it comes to salary negotiation. Well, that's how all of this is so connected, because it's about us making the decisions for what is right for us. And what you said about knowing that you can have it in the house and not eat it all, or whatever the example is, really going back to trusting ourselves, which is a huge component of healing from codependency, knowing that we will do the right things when we need to do what's healthy for us. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of trust involved, right?
Yes. Yeah. Self-trust for sure. And I think catching yourself in the discomfort, right, of like, um, even being able to check in, right? If you catch yourself, I don't know, grabbing food mindlessly, being able to catch yourself in the moment and reflect of like, is this what I really need right now? Do I need food? Do I need a hug? Do I need to call my therapist? Do I need to take a walk? Like, what do I need? So there's so much overlap. And I say this all the time to my patients, like, what we do to heal your relationship with food is not any different than when we do like to heal in a friendship or any other type of relationship. We have to kind of catch ourselves in the moment, pause, self-reflect, kind of gauge, like, is this actually what I need right now, or do I need something different? And coming at that question from a place of curiosity and not judgment, right? So we
Mhm.
can't judge ourselves when we make a mistake or mess up. We more have to look at it of like, well, what just happened there? And did I need to, have that extra bite, or did I need to eat the whole bag, or did I need something else, or what was kind of happening? And when we ask those questions, we're more likely to get answers versus being judgmental, like, oh, I did it again, like, stupid me, or I'm never going to get this, right? Those judgy
Mhm.
narratives just keep us trapped
That
in the
internal
shame,
dialogue.
that negative internal dialogues. When we're working on healing our relationship with food, we're always kind of coming at it from a place of curiosity, gentleness, compassion, because those are where the answers are going to come from.
Because I do notice that younger people are talking about self-care more regularly. There's TikToks about it. There seems to be a much better awareness. Do you feel the same way when it comes to intuitive eating? Are you seeing it generationally change at all?
I feel like there's still a lot of noise around dieting or body image and size. I think we're getting to a place where maybe size diversity is a little bit more, I guess maybe there is a little bit more size diversity and acceptance with people being in different size bodies. But the narrative around food really hasn't shifted much, right? I feel like there still is like good food, bad foods, or calorie counting. And there's so much on social media or TikTok or Instagram of just really disordered ways of thinking about how we should nourish our body. And there's such a large focus on weight loss that the message about intuitive eating really it's not mainstream yet. It almost feels a little bit foreign and scary to people. Like, I can't listen to my body. I need to follow these rigid rules. Like, living without guardrails is, unacceptable. I need these rigid, strict rules around food and nourishing in order to be healthy. And it's really the opposite. But the opposite's really scary for people. It's not
Right,
talked about, right?
right.
So, um, I don't I don't I think there is more awareness around intuitive eating, but I don't think that it's mainstream. I think we still have a long way to go.
So what would the first step look like for someone who is listening and is interested in even just thinking about it? What's the first step someone can take toward it?
From my perspective, the first thing is to find a dietitian that is certified as an intuitive eating counselor to help walk you through the initial steps. If that's not available, then getting the intuitive eating book is really important, or downloading it and listening to it on, I was going to say on tape, but I know that's not the thing anymore.
You're so old.
That's what I did, was read the book and then listen to it and let it all kind of marinate and soak in. Because it's such a foreign concept for people that you might have to listen to it a few times. And quite honestly, I've had a lot of patients that have listened to it a few times before they reached out to me, because it was just felt like such a big jump to go from dieting to not dieting. And that journey from dieting to not dieting is really scary. And that's where a dietitian can be really helpful, because we walk through it together. You're not doing this alone, and it doesn't feel as scary when someone's there with you and guiding you and reassuring you that, like, yes, you're doing the right thing. This is right. So yeah, the very first step, if someone didn't or couldn't work with a dietitian, would be to download the intuitive eating book and just start listening to it and wrapping your mind around the concept. With that being said, a lot of times we have to baby step our way to intuitive eating. So we can't just drop that dieting mindset right away. Sometimes we have to keep nuggets of that as we kind of tiptoe closer to the beginning steps of intuitive eating. There's like a couple different stages that we have to go through in order to get there. So the best way I describe it is a journey away from dieting. Because it really isn't like one day you're dieting and the next day you're an intuitive eater. It really is a journey. And for me, it probably took years to get to the place where I feel very comfortable and confident, just nourishing my body any way that feels right to me in the moment. And for a lot of my patients, it's years, right? It's not months. So this is you're in it for the long haul. Unlike dieting, which is like 6 months or 30 days or whatever, 12-week program. This is a forever mindset shift, and just requires you to buckle up and be ready to make these permanent changes. Because once you learn it, it's forever, right? I always say, like, we have our body for the rest of our life. And if we can figure out how to tune into it and listen to it, we're golden, right? We don't need an app or anything else outside of us to tell us when to eat or how much. If we tune in and listen and really trust that our body's giving us information, it's with us on vacation. It's with us when we go out to dinner. It's with us at a barbecue. We can always tap in and ask, like, what do I need right now? Am I hungry? Am I full? Do I like this food? Do I not like this food? That information's always with you. So it just takes a little time to get to that point where you trust your body and can fully embrace that, I guess, that your body's going to give you the information you need.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for offering the book as an option for someone who might not be able to work with someone like yourself. And this podcast has never been about promoting a coach as much as exposing people to different modes of self-care. And one thing I know from my coaching is that people who are struggling with codependency have a very hard time investing time and money into themselves. They're the first ones to sign their kids up for lessons and, trainings and whatever that is. But it's really hard for them to do that for themselves.
Yes.
My opinion is our self-care is so important. Our health, the way we're thinking, the self-talk, all of that is so important, so that we can support our families and our coworkers and whatever else we need to do in our lives. So
yeah. Can I tell you one more story?
Please.
I think you made a good point in those, and I have struggled with codependency too, and self-care. And so this journey of intuitive eating was difficult for me to put myself first, right? Like, what foods did I want to buy at the grocery store? What foods did I want to eat at dinner? Like, all those were, for some people, maybe that sounds so silly, but I think when you're not used to doing that, it's a difficult task to achieve. So for listeners who are struggling with putting themselves first or prioritizing any of their needs, start with something small. And one of my first, one of my first activities was to choose, this is literally silly, and I might have said it on my podcast too, is choose the type of gum that I want to purchase, not the type of gum that my kids like or my husband likes, or like literally what type of gum do I want? And that was just such a simple way of starting that practice of tuning in to what my needs are or my preferences. And then it can grow from there, right? Then it can grow to like, what kind of ice cream do I want? What do I want for dinner? Where would I like to go out to dinner, right? Like, those are kind of bigger decisions for somebody who's not used to knowing what they want. So start with something super small, like, what kind of gum do you prefer, right? And just take it from that small
Love that.
and build on it.
Yeah, I love that example. And I love how when we start to do the work, we can see these what seem like tiny decisions. And one of the things we laugh about in the coaching is picking a paint color can be like a lifetime. It feels like a lifetime decision. And
Yeah.
And so just practicing and choosing the color that I actually like is an exercise in self-care. So I love that. I love the pack of gum. It's so simple. And you have 25 choices. It really does make you look at it. Am I choosing the one that's less expensive because I don't want to spend the money, or the one that's sugar-free because I don't want the calories, or which one do I actually want?
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's easy, right? I walk in,
Right.
I like this gum, and I just pick it and go. But it was like a process for sure to like, do I buy juicy fruit? I know everybody likes that, but I hate it.
Right.
So it's silly. It's like $2 now, maybe. So you're not spending a lot of money if you choose wrong. So yeah, it's just an easy place to start.
Yeah. I love that. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share?
I think be gentle with yourself when you're trying to, even if you have the recognition of, oh, I think I might have some disordered relationships around food. I think being really compassionate with yourself and gentle. Like, we're surrounded by diet culture. We're surrounded by messagings that smaller is better, or we should be eating a certain way to be healthy. And that's not true, right? There's different ways to be healthy, and we have to figure out what health means for ourselves, and then be true to ourselves in honoring whatever that may be. And it's very different, than the person next to you or your family member. So you almost have to put blinders on and really just pay attention to what you need, what your body's telling you, and not worry about the noise that's outside. So baby steps and lots of love.
Love that. Lots of self-love. I love our conversations, and I am so grateful for you to be here to have this one with me. So I will post your links and your, in the show notes, but is there a specific way you would like people to get a hold of you?
Our website is probably the best. So jessicadeannutrition.com is where all the information is. You can follow us on Instagram too, although I'm not super active on Instagram. There are some old things on there, like meal prep ideas and just different intuitive eating tips. But to work with us or just to learn more about intuitive eating, our website, Jessica D Nutrition, is the best place to go.
Okay, great. All right. I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Great job making time for yourself today. Be sure to subscribe to my Self-Care Shit, the podcast, wherever you listen in. Your 5-star review will help get this show to whoever needs to hear it. Go grab your free daily self-care checklist on my selfcareshit.com. Please take the last minute of this podcast for yourself to listen to the ocean waves and breathe.